I really underestimate how much motion Hollow Knight and Silksong had. I played Hollow Knight the first time like maybe a few years ago, maybe 2021, and I basically rage quit after beating Hornet. I just wasn't mentally fortified to play Souls-like games, really, since I never really completed any. A couple of years later, I did make an effort to get better at the genre because not only Hollow Knight is a Souls-like-ish game, but it's also mainly a Metroidvania, meaning that it's like an open-world platforming maze essentially. And at the time in 2021, I didn't know what I was really going into. I didn't really know what the game was, never really played a Souls or Souls-like game, and I never played a Metroidvania. But now, just recently with some Metroidvania games and Souls-like games under my belt, I was ready for Hollow Knight. Almost a little too ready for it. I beat Hollow Knight in like 13 hours of my first almost blind playthrough. After playing it, Hollow Knight was unironically a better introductory game than a game like Prince of Persia Lost Crown or even Elden Ring that I played. And so I was going into Silksong hoping that was a little bit more challenging than Hollow Knight. And yeah, it was the most wishlisted game on Steam. Yeah, I figured a lot of people would go crazy when it releases, and somehow I was severely wrong on both ends. The day Silksong came out, it crashed the Steam store and the Nintendo eShop because everyone was trying to buy it at the same time. On Steam alone, Silksong had a peak of 587,000 concurrent players, again on Steam alone. Silksong is also on, I think PS5, PS4, Switch, Xbox Series, and Xbox One, and to this day, it is reported that over 4 million copies of Silksong have been sold. I think a lot of people knew that Silksong was going to have a really good, successful launch, but never to this level. And after playing Silksong and seeing the credits after 22 hours, it is almost everything I could ask for in a sequel. I'm not a lore guy, right? When I was playing through Hollow Knight, I could tell there was tons of lore pieces and stuff that was very important, just like in Elden Ring. There wasn't really a strong narrative story, so to speak, which isn't a bad thing. A game like this doesn't need to have a strong narrative to be fun. As long as you kind of get the gist of what's going on, that's fine with me. And with Silksong, I think it did that slightly better than Hollow Knight, because from the get-go, I understood where I needed to go. To the Citadel. So similar to Legends of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Hyrule's Castle, you knew where to go immediately, and you always see it on your map. NPCs around you always mention it, and it always gave me this looming threat that I will have to deal with eventually. In the base game of Hollow Knight, it wasn't really that clear. I stumbled upon areas essentially on accident, and because of that, there were a lot of areas in Hollow Knight that I didn't explore or even knew of without knowing. In Silksong, there is more guidance in where you want to be at, but still allowing you that freedom to want to explore. The main thing they added into this entry is a quest log. I love me some quest logs. It tells you exactly where you want to be, or at least where you should be aiming for. Markers on the map so you can see how far you have to travel into the unknown, or pick up some side quests here and there to get some more currencies or even items. And trust me, you're going to need all the help you can get. In Hollow Knight, I ran through that game with low-level gear and bare basic charms and beat it in 13 hours. Silksong got me side questing for gear because I needed them. And whenever I got stuck in an area or a boss and I was like, okay, it's questing time, I actually don't mind in Silksong. The world and biomes are so cool. I would say some areas in Hollow Knight 1 are good, but Silksong is banger after banger after banger. Even the more gruesome and punishing areas like Hunter's March is still very cool thematically, and that biome being challenging so early on makes it iconic in a good way. And to think there are so many biomes in just Act 1 is crazy. When you get to Act 2, that's a whole different story, and it was really well made and put together. You've probably heard it by now, but Silksong is very, very punishing. Too punishing at times. Some bosses have long run-ups, bosses deal 2 points of damage to you, you can only heal when you have full silk, which is basically souls in this game. You gotta pay for this, you gotta pay for that, your pogo is diagonal, and the list goes on, and I still enjoyed it. To me, it felt like playing Shadow of the Erdtree DLC after almost completing the base game for Elden Ring. It's the same game, but the stakes and difficulty is higher, and it's no accident that it's harder. The devs said it themselves. It was something along the lines like, Hornet is a very skillful fighter, and therefore, there should be enemies, bosses, and zones that are essentially that rival her power level. And one of my main concerns for me going into Silksong was, how can this game feel different than its predecessor, but not feel too different that it doesn't feel like a sequel? And to me, I think they strike the perfect balance. The exploration at times are similar, the way you look for secrets are similar, the little nudge in environmental storytelling is similar, but they change small things that really set apart from the Knight. Things like how You set up your loadout, the gear that you're getting, the abilities that you acquire, and even the cute animations that Hornet has. It all looks so smooth, so polished, so clean. And yeah, the bosses can be frustrating to beat. It can feel unfair that they hit you for 2 HP. Yeah, the diagonal pogos can be weird, which was never really my complaint. I was never good at pogoing in the first game. Yeah, the bosses can feel like they have too much HP, but I was still having tons of fun. I don't want to say too much about specific contents of the game, since I think part of the experience is experiencing it for the first time with no prior knowledge, but one of the things that they did really cool in this entry that I liked was the visual spectacle of it. The introduction of bosses are really cool, the visual flair, the background, the effects, the music, the lead up. It was very well made put together. If there's one thing I noticed in Souls-like games is that when you break bosses down to what they do mechanically, it's very simple. They dash like this, they swing like that, but it's the flair, the effects, and all the extra stuff that's meant to distract you, to intimidate you. That's what get a lot of people, especially initially in fights. Silksong really turned that up on the visual flair in boss fights, and it makes the fights very enjoyable to fight and makes them memorable. If only they have like an arena mode like in Stellar Blade, where you can just free fight bosses that you've already fought, because I think a decent amount of people would love that feature, me included. And just the amount of content that's in the game, there's a lot. Different weapon types, tons of new enemies, new bosses, new biomes, multiple towns, added quest lines, more secrets, and more fun. I was under the impression that Silksong was basically like, they had too many DLC ideas and they decided to make it into a new game, similar to how Tears of the Kingdom was made. And I guess I still went in thinking that it was going to be a quick and short playthrough, and turned out I was very wrong. All the changes, all the challenges and everything, I honestly could never go back to the first Hollow Knight game. If I was ever in a Hollow Knight mood, I'm playing Silksong. I much prefer Silksong because it feels more of a complete experience than Hollow Knight. Don't get me wrong, Hollow Knight is still good, but Silksong is better. Yes, Silksong can be very difficult, very grueling, and very punishing at times, but I still had an amazing time with it. I think at times it can be too punishing, like still taking damage when touching staggered bosses, some insanely long run-ups to certain bosses, but the music, the story, the environment, the presentation of the entire game is spectacular. If you have played Hollow Knight, you gotta play this game, especially since this game is only $20. And I was ready to pay $60 for this. If you haven't played Hollow Knight, well, go play that one first, because it's essentially the tutorial for this game. After playing Expedition 33, I thought there was no way there was going to be any competition for Game of the Year. Well, I don't know which game deserves it more, that or Silksong. That'll do it for me for today. Make sure to like and subscribe, as my goal is to get to 500 subs by the end of the month. I hope you guys have a great rest of the day, and I appreciate you guys for watching.